Are queer pageants in South Africa still relevant? And what significance do they present to the individuals who partake in them? Do these organizations put queer topics and social issues at the forefront and uplifting the community in a positive and inclusive light as it should be? With recent news being flooded with questions, the need for answers about what really happens behind the scenes can no longer be ignored. Today we have Louw Breytenbach on the show, who is a former title holder of a queer pageant. Louw, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
I feel very honored to have you here. I'm trying not to blush.
It makes two of us.
Stop it, carry on. Today's episode is all about the relevance and significance of queer pageantry in South Africa, and I think you obviously have a lot of experience with that. My first question to you is, why did you enter a queer pageant?
So the interesting idea of it actually started that initially I didn't enter into Mr. Gay per se. There was another title, actually, Mr. World Essay, for which I originally entered. And when I was at the audition, it was so interesting because one of the organizers came to me and they're like, "You're Louw Breytenbach, and you are an activist for gay rights." And I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "So why the hell are you not entering the queer pageant?" And in my mind previously or beforehand, I thought the idea was, I can represent the queer community on a global scale,
Yes.
and you don't have to label it as queer. We're going to represent from inside the mainstream pageant. And in that thought process, while sitting there, it actually dawned upon me that, why not audition for both pageants and let the cards fall where they will and have your voice be heard where it needs to be heard. And so it happened that I scored higher in the queer pageant and decided to run with that. But the main idea and the main drive behind it was for queer visibility. And obviously I wanted exposure for my nonprofits that I had been running during lockdown for 2 years.
So with regards to your nonprofit organizations and stuff that you have, did you receive any support from, let's say, the pageant team to help promote the stuff that you were already doing?
Yeah. I think when it comes to these type of things, what makes it difficult is that many pageants claim that there isn't financial support. There's not a big support structure. But what the pageant did do is it gave me a platform through various media outlets who obviously show interest and support for the queer community. We got word out and we were able to use that exposure to guide and help the charities channel the money into the correct spaces.
Amazing. And just, can you speak a little bit about your organizations that you were running during lockdown?
Absolutely. So I've got two charities that are very close to my heart. One is called Gate of Hope. So Gate of Hope is a mental health awareness campaign, and we put people in touch with psychologists, with counselors, when they don't have money or medical aid to pay for mental health services. So usually it runs from my birthday on the 12th of May all the way till October. And then we usually publish contact numbers and email addresses on social media where they can get into contact with these counselors and psychologists to receive some mental health care. And also, if you're just an ally or supporter, we have various spots throughout Gauteng where they can come tie a green ribbon around a gate just to show support for mental health. And then our other charity is run in coherence with Outreach Unlimited, and it's called Future Steps. And that is aimed at providing every student in South Africa with school shoes and school stationery to really give them that step to take their future in the right direction.
Amazing.
You say that the pageantry has given you the platform to be more visible. What has that meant for you personally, and how have you used that platform to reach out to the queer community?
I think, in a sense, it did highlight a lot of issues in the community that I myself had been silent on previously. It forces you to recognize trans rights, which has been a huge thing in pageantry over the past 2 years. Even if we look at heterosexual pageants with Miss Essay, that question came about. It forced me to open up dialogue about race issues and equality in that. So from a personal level, it really opened my eyes a lot to the plight of the LGBTIQA plus community in South Africa. And I think it also, in the larger audience, it opened up dialogue again, because during lockdown, we almost forgot that a lot of these queer pageants exist. The relevance of it deteriorated a little bit. And I think because it was the first time in over a decade that a South African also won the world pageant, it did bring some pride to the African continent, and it did open up dialogue about why we aren't seeing more Africans and more South Africans enter these international competitions.
Louw, I think for us, trying to understand and get into this now in terms of the pageantry side. I know you are various facets of Louw, and we are just focusing on this one right now. But for you, going through this, what was your journey like in this pageantry as well? What did you learn about yourself in this time? And when you started, who came out at the other end? Not just being the winner, but who came out the other end?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, and even the question has so many layers to it. So to get to the gist of it, I think that when I started off, it was simply a journey of, okay, I'm going to get my my charities recognized. I'm going to do some good in the community, and get some face time, and that's going to be it. And what happened in this journey is that very quickly I became aware of the responsibility that you have to carry, to say that you are a representative of the community, and that shouldn't be taken lightly. When you attach the term activist to your name, it can't just mean that you're chasing papers and making headlines if you're not actively working to push for change within the community. And I think the person that came out on the other side was a Louw that is a lot more in touch with who I am as a person, a lot more accepting of who I am myself, and a person who's a lot more accepting of others. Because as much as we have this idea of woke culture and we are so accepting and so open, I myself, being totally honest, within this journey was faced with this question of what is it to be a manly gay or a pageantry accepted gay?
Yes.
Because you have to understand that with this queer pageant being one of the only places to represent gay males, we had this question of, are we just looking for a muscle cover boy? Are we accepting of those who are more body positive, more curvaceous? Do we accept skinnier body types? Do we accept people who are more feminine, or perhaps those who are trans? And it opened that dialogue for myself to go, oh, but wait, I was actually maybe a bit homophobic internally without realizing it, just by having that idea of what I thought a pageant king had to be. And that was a big struggle for me to go and do that introspection and go, oh, wait, maybe I'm not as accepting of myself or as accepting of others as I put out there on social media. And that was a very personal journey that I had to take to go, okay, maybe I'm not saying on my profile, no fats, no femmes, no this, but internally in my mind, it was a dialogue that I had to change to go, if we are looking for a Mr. Gay or a Miss Gay or whatever we attach to that title, how accepting are we as a community of whoever enters that pageant and what can they bring to the table?
But you see, and that brings me to my next question is, this person is obviously a spokesperson for a community, but also we need to open it up because the community is so diverse.
Yes.
We cannot
Absolutely.
just have this fixated picture of what a Mr. Gay or a, whichever title holder should look like. We should open it up to everybody and let everybody be represented
Yes.
authentically.
But now in that's your realization on this journey. But my question to you now is that the narrative that's being pushed out from the actual pageantry side? Because all of us, we all have the same narrative. Yeah. We're all going to look and be like, this is the kind of guy that must represent the community as a Mr. Gay or Mr. World Gay, so, but the same narrative, is it also applied within the organizations?
I just want to add to you before you answer your question, if we look back at, let's say, for instance, the pageantry or the pageant that you competed in, people of color have never won. They always place first or second. This year we received the first person of color, but which only automatically happened because you stepped down. So I still feel like there is an integration problem.
Oh, absolutely.
In the pageant scene.
Yeah. So both of it is something that needs to be pushed in dialogue, because I personally don't think the current organization is pushing for reform. I don't think they're pushing for inclusivity. I think some of the current pageants in South Africa are looking for the cover model image. And that is one of the reasons I decided to step down, was I felt that my voice was not being heard as someone who wanted to be more for the community than just the cover boy. Because it's fine, I've got the abs, I've got the Instagram thing, I can do that. But that doesn't affect change. It doesn't represent the community. It doesn't represent the issues at large with integration and trans rights and representation on a bigger scale for countries, because when we are talking about a Mr. Gay world, it means that it's bigger than just South Africa. You are representing an entire continent of Africa where it's still illegal in so many countries to be who you are, one of which was Namibia, where I campaigned actively last year as well, in leading their second Pride March as well. So to answer your question, no, I don't think that these organizations are pushing forward. And that's one of the big problems. And that ties in directly with what you said with integration. Because if we are not forced to be challenged, if there's no one speaking up against it, and if there's no one challenging these pageants and what these beauty standards are that we hold ourselves to, then it's never going to change.
Just before we move on, I just wanted to speak about, because then what do you think, in your experience and in your opinion, what do you think the aim is for these pageants?
I think at the moment, the aim is to have a beauty contest. And it unfortunately is measured by people who are not conscious of what's happening in the actual community. They're not conscious of what the actual challenges are in the community. They're not interested in the queer murder rate in South Africa, or body positivity or inclusivity. And that's the main problem. So when we talk about addressing the issue from grassroots level, it starts with A, people speaking out against current organizations, and B, maybe people stepping up to say that maybe we need a new pageant that is completely inclusive, that is not just based on beauty standards, but that actually looks for a representative. And maybe we should not call it a beauty pageant then, but ambassadorship, or something that's bigger than just the outer beauty of it.
I think for me, in referencing to this word that's also constantly, luring around, is the fact that what is the definition of beauty?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying, in terms of this pageantry world? Because at the end of the day, there are these blockages, and we understand that this is the cover person that's going to be there. Yes, they're not knowledgeable in terms of our community, but there's also an aesthetic thing that comes into play here. And what is the definition of beauty in that? And yet again, this is what we faced with on a daily basis in our community. Like, do you look this way?
And that's the thing, we encourage people to embrace their own beauty.
Yes.
And we want people to be comfortable in the individuality, but on the other side, it's told you have to look like this.
There we go. And such a powerful platform, being the pageantry side of it all, that's where the difference comes in, because it's also, again, the media side of it all. and we're going, oh wow, that's what I should aspire to. That's what I should look to, you know. But I mean, I'm not going to be a white male who's gay with a lot of muscles. You know, like that. That's never going to be something I'm going to fit into.
Jody, I see you like
Thank you so much, Shenay.
I want to...
Just one more thing.
Yes.
What do you think it would take to, I don't know, challenge an organization like this, as big as this, to, I don't know, change or kind of introduce change in these kind of pageants?
Because the thing is, I just want to add before you answer the question, because it's good to see everything on a website. You know, the words are there and this is what we stand for. But it's different when you actually in the pageant or you meet people in the pageant and it's like whatever mandate is set out, it's completely the opposite.
Yeah.
It's not being followed.
Yeah, I think talking about opening a dialogue for change has already happened. It happened a few minutes before I stepped down. There was a rumbling and people started talking and saying, but why aren't you speaking up against things? If this feels so wrong, why are you keeping silent? And that's part of why I broke my silence and stepped down, because I didn't want to be associated with something that is just physical. And then obviously Bongs, who's a very dear friend of mine, stepped up for himself and said that the pageant is not being inclusive enough. They're not being serious about their mission to say that they are transforming and including people from different backgrounds and different regions of South Africa. And he felt that his community wasn't represented and that there wasn't a voice for him to be heard. So he stepped down. So when we talk about people standing up and starting a dialogue, I think that has already happened. What we need from here on out is for more people to maybe write to these councils, and not just the South African one, to the international board and say that we want this type of representation on an international scale as well, because it's not just a South African problem, it's a problem with pageantry as a whole. Yeah.
Do you think that you would start your own pageant?
Listen, I love a crown. Even my dentist says I deserve one. So there have been some talks about it. I do think where the challenge comes in, because yes, I would love to start an initiative where we can do that. But where the challenge comes in is to have something that is inclusive, and it has to be something that is absolutely fair, and it has to be something that is completely transparent, and that it is more than just beauty. It is an ambassadorship of making a change in the community. And if we're not selecting someone who is actively involved in the community, then it will serve no purpose and it will become the exact same empire that we are trying to tear down. So it's something that I think if I ever should do that, it will have to be something that is planned out very carefully and that incorporates a lot of voices within the community to make sure that we have the support of the entire LGBTIQA+ community and that we are truly representative and inclusive of people of color, of our trans brothers and sisters, and to make sure that the platform is open to everyone, regardless of body image or size or gender roles or gender identities, to enter. And for that to happen, a name like a Mr. Gay will also have to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we end this episode, I just want to mention to our viewers as well that we did invite the organizers and the people in charge of this Mr. Gay World and Mr. Gay is a pageant onto the show to state their case, because let's be honest, a lot of the stuff that we've been seeing in the media has not been very positive. And obviously we wanted them to state their side of the story, but was respectfully declined. So we can only go on with what we see in the media. So I want to ask you lastly, would you mentor other people who want to enter, queer pageantry? And what would you say to these individuals to be on the lookout for when they enter? And how their intentions, what should they be aware of before they enter?
Sure, that's a layered question. But
I hope you can remember because I can't remember.
I've got you, girl. I've got you. I had been practicing pageantry questions for a while, so I've got this. So first off, yes, I would be open to mentor people, not just in pageantry per se, but I think it's important to have queer role models that you look up to. And I've always been very open on all my social media platforms to encourage people to contact me, whether it is for mental health advice or for mentoring or coaching on the drama side. If I can't help, hopefully there's a network of people I can put them in touch with to help. So yes, absolutely would mentor. And then when it comes to preparing for pageantry, I would say that it first has to start with what is your intention of doing it. If it is to be just a beauty queen, and for a lot of people that is where it starts and stops, then by all means enter into your favorite beauty pageant and go rock that confidence, beat the mug, do the thing. But be so aware of what you want to achieve after that pageant. You know, the glory moment of wearing a crown or a sash lasts about a full 2 minutes, and then you go, oh wait, I have to tweet about it, and you go back to eating chips in your pajamas. so the glory and the glitz and the glam of it is very short-lived, and you have to know what do you want to do with that title afterwards. And if it really is about representing the community or helping the community at large, then make sure that you do that. Don't just say that you will help or say that you are a representative or say that you are an activist, because I think a lot of times we use these things as a little social media hashtag to be attached to our profile. Then make sure that you do go out and you affect change where you go. And as far as to conclude things to look out for, I would say make sure that you know who you're getting in bed with. Do your research about the organization.
Not in bed physically with. Just
Absolutely
to make that clear.
Make sure that you do your research on the organization. Make sure that the people who are running the organization are people of integrity and value and people that you can see in the community. If you are entering a pageant that says that they are helping the community, but the organizer has never been seen in the community, that should already be a red flag. Make sure it's people that you can hold hands with and effect change with together.
I think the main thing that I'm taking from this episode is accountability.
Absolutely.
Whether it is a contestant participating in a queer pageant or the organizers and everybody working behind the scenes. We need to hold people accountable, whether it's the sponsors who are part of this. Speak up if you see that something is not right, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward. Absolutely. Do you guys agree?
I do, yeah. And fully also in terms of the definition of beauty, you know, and I think I stay there for a bit because it's just the clarity that's coming through is so profound. And I love what you have done, Louw, in a serious note. You've gone there, you've effected change. You could have stayed where you were and you could have just carried on and lived the role out in the ground, but you actually made a step in an opposite direction, and that opposite direction was to fight for all of us, and that's quite incredible. So seriously, well done.
Thank you so much.
Just one more thing. We can't all be as brave as you, but we can support each other.
Absolutely.
That we can.
We wish you well on your endeavors forward, and may your activism work and your charities just prosper and open doors for many individuals and people who are less fortunate and who sometimes just feel a little bit lost.
Thank you. And thank you for the amazing work that you guys are doing by opening the dialogue on this topic and many other serious topics. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Queer organizations who represent queer individuals need to be more involved and aware with the communities they are trying to uplift, to understand the needs, desire, issues, and challenges the community face, and not just to illuminate a facade of world peace. We need to hold these individuals accountable and to make sure that the sash is used for the greater good and the communities at hand.